Welcome to our channel. Library of Knowledge. Balerion was one of the 5 dragons that escaped from the doom of Valyria, a cataclysmic event that wiped both humans and their dragons. He belonged to House Targaryen and bounded to Aegon I Targaryen, who later became the king of Westeros. He was named after one of the old gods of Valyria. Balerion was the largest in size, seconded by Meraxes, a she-dragon bounded to Rhaenys Targaryen, and Vhagar, also a she-dragon bounded to Visenya Targaryen. Both Rhaenys and Visenya were Aegon's sisters and his wives. Both Meraxes and Vhagar were born on Dragonstone, where their eggs hatched. He remained the largest and oldest known dragon in Westeros from the time of his arrival, with a lifespan that stretched for more than 200 years. His appearance was menacing. The wings and scales on his body were black, and his fire breath was also of dark color, sometimes showing swirls of red. The wingspan was so large that the shadow he cast on the ground could cover entire villages. Balerion was capable of eating whole wild cattle like an auroch, and his teeth were long as sword blades. While on his prime, his fire breath was so strong that he could melt steel and stone and turn sand into glass. Balerion got the nickname the Black Dread, depicting the real impact over Westeros and the people who were not accustomed to see such a living horror. Dragons were the ultimate magic weapon, and none could stand a chance facing such a might. Balerion was born in Valyria and the only one remaining alive that has seen the Valyrian freehold in its full glory. He survived the Doom event because of Aegon Targaryen's decision to leave the freehold and move with his family along 5 dragons to Dragonstone Island. Aegon's daughter, Daenys the Dreamer, foretold the destruction of Valyria 10 years prior to the event. The Targaryens were not even by far the strongest dragonlords, but the only one to survive the catastrophic event where no other dragons escaped. With time passing, Balerion will bound with Lord Aegon Targaryen, one of the descendants of Aegon Targaryen. Aegon will be his first known rider. They will become involved in their first conflict when Pentos and Tyrosh purposed an alliance to go against Volantis, in the Disputed Lands, a region of southwestern Essos. Aegon and Balerion will burn the Volantis fleet that was trying to take the city of Lys. Aegon will then turn his attention to the Westeros continent, where the lands were ruled by 7 independent realms, besides the lands beyond the Wall. He landed at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, where he built the Aegon Fort, later to become King's Landing. Aegon's first test will become the battle against the 2 opposing houses Darkland and Mootn. The battle was swift and decisive. Both lords Darkland and Mootn lost their lives. Duskendale and Maidenpool bent the knee to Aegon. House Targaryen will then clash with House Hoare that ruled in the Kingdom of the Isles and the Rivers. Aegon was victorious in the Battle of the Reeds that took place on the southern shore of the God's Eye Lake. House Hoare retaliated, and the sons of King Harrenhal inflicted heavy casualties on the Targaryens, using their longships, in the battle called Wailing Willows. While returning victorious from the battle, they met the wrath of Aegon riding Balerion. Both descended from the sky and burned the fleet over the God's Eye. King Harrenhal, losing now many of his supporters due to his cruel dominion over the years, retreated to his gigantic fortress, Harrenhal, with its high 5 towers. Aegon flew Balerion to Harrenhal. While the fortress was indeed impenetrable by ground forces, its weakness remained the attacks from above. Balerion unleashed his fire breath with devastating outcome. King Harren was roasted alive in his tower called Kingspire. The heat was so intense that the stone melted and gave the castle a burned, crooked or twisted appearance. This was the ending of House Hoare. None survived the flames. Cracklaw Point surrendered to Visenya with no resistance after hearing what took place at Harrenhal. The next battle will be the one against the Kingdom of Storm ruled by King Argilac Durrandon. Aegon will send Orys Baratheon, his friend from childhood, rumored to be his bastard half-brother, and Rhaenys riding Meraxes. King Argilac will eventually face Orys in single battle and will die fighting. Orys will later marry Princess Argella Durrandon and he will become Lord Paramount of the Stormlands, founding the House Baratheon. With the submission of Harrenhal, Cracklaw Point and Storm's End, Aegon along his sisters Visenya and Rhaenys will face a new major battle, known as the Field of Fire. Here Aegon, holding 3 dragons, Balerion, Meraxes and Vhagar, along with Lord Jon Mooten, the first to come over to the Targaryen side, faced the joined forces of 2 kingdoms, Kingdom of the Rock of the House Lannister and Kingdom of the Reach, of the House Gardener. Although the ground armies were 5-1 in the favors of the opposing forces, the Lannisters and the Gardeners, the presence of the 3 huge dragons was the real turning point. This was the only battle where all 3 dragons were seen participating together in a conflict. The casualties were profound. 4,000 men were burned alive, more thousands suffered burns. House Gardener ended with this battle and Loren First Lannister renounced the claim to kingship and bent the knee and became Warden of the West, under the rule of House Targaryen. The Targaryens lost no more than 100 men. Visenya was injured when an arrow pierced her shoulder. The Highgarden, the seat of now extinct House Gardener, surrendered without any more conflicts. Harlan Tyrell, the steward, was rewarded with the dominion over the Reach, and became Lord of Highgarden and Warden of the South. Now Aegon faced another opposition, the King of the North, Torrhen Stark, of House Stark, who marched south and crossed the Neck leading his 30,000 Northmen army into the Riverlands. Aegon took flight on Balerion to meet him, ahead of his army of 45,000 strong. But when Torrhen found out about the burning of Harrenhal and the outcome of the Battle of the Field of Fire, he bent the knee, thus becoming the Warden of the North. Aegon is crowned king by the High Septon, and many cheered him while he flew with Balerion over the streets of Old Town. It was now the moment that, according to song, the mighty Balerion helped the forging of the Iron Throne, melting the swords of those who opposed Aegon in his claim to rule over Westeros. 1,000 blades were used to build this symbol of conquest. The throne is depicted as being asymmetric, massive and ugly, and was not comfortable, even dangerous, many of the blades remaining sharp and battle-ready. Aegon first intended to be like this to remind that a king should never sit easy. A metaphor regarding the difficulty to rule over so many. In the succession struggle that followed, Aegon took Balerion once again to face the Iron Islands, an event called the Invasion of the Iron Islands. Qhorin Volmark declared himself king. Other rival kings also appeared, like King Lodos of Old Wick, the King of Great Wick, the King of Pike and the King of Orkmont. Aegon killed Qhorin with his Valyrian steel sword, Black Fire. Lodos drowned along with his many followers and the rest bent the knee. Aegon did not appoint one of his supporters and allowed the Ironborn to choose their ruler. Viken Greyjoy, Lord Reaper of Pike, became the Lord of the Iron Islands. The Ironborn were forced to give up of any claims regarding the Riverlands. The final struggle was the 9 Years' War with Dorne, that started with King Aegon I Targaryen. The only kingdom that resisted and did not bend the knee to House Targaryen. In his initial conquest, King Aegon sent Queen Rhaenys in his name, to conquer Dorne. Rhaenys flew Meraxes but found abandoned castles in her path until she met Meria Martell, the Princess of Dorne, at Sunspear. Meria Martell told Rhaenys to go back as the Targaryens are not wanted there and Dorne will never bend the knee. Consequently, Dorne remained the only kingdom not to be conquered, and Aegon, at that time, focused on the rest of the Westeros. With only the Kingdom of Dorne remaining now, King Aegon launched an invasion to complete his conquest. Throughout different skirmishes and many losses in the desert terrain, Targaryens finally reached Sunspear to find that Princess Meria fled. King Aegon and Queen Rhaenys placed Dorne under Iron Throne rule, leaving Lord Jon Rosby as Warden of the Sands. Not long before the Targaryens left Dorne, the Dornishmen regained the control of their castle. Lord Rosby was killed by Princess Meria Martell. Lord Harlan Tyrell's entire army disappeared in the deserts of Dorne while attempting to retake Sunspear and Vaith. A guerrilla warfare unleashed by Dornishmen followed and entire garrisons were slain, knights being tortured and mutilated. King Aegon I Targaryen, in revenge, unleashed the might of his dragons. All the castles remaining defiant were burned again and again, with the Dornishmen retaliating, burning and sacking town and villages under the Targaryens' territory. 1 year later, King Aegon sent again his dragons to burn several seats. The following year, Dorne retaliated and attacked Nightsong and Old Town. Third time King Aegon sent his dragons, now focusing on Starfall of House Dane, Skyreach of House Fowler and Hellholt of House Uller. Tragedy fell upon the Targaryen house during the battle at Hellholt, when a scorpion bolt pierced the eye of Meraxes. The dragon fell from the sky with Queen Rhaenys on her back. On the fall, the massive dragon body destroyed the castle's highest tower and part of the wall. Immense grief fell on Aegon and Visenya, knowing now of the lose of Rhaenys and her she-dragon, Meraxes. The following 2 years will be known as Dragon's Wrath, since King Aegon along his remaining sister and wife flew their dragons Balerion and Vhagar and burned every stronghold in Dorne. The only exception was Sunspear and its Shadow City. The king placed bounties for the heads of Dornish lords, who retaliated and placed bounties on the Targaryen family as well. King Aegon was attacked in 3 occasions and Visenya in several. While together, they were assaulted on the streets of King's Landing. King Aegon was saved by his sister's quick intervention. This event will bring to creation of the elite royal bodyguard, known as the Kingsguard. A burning ruin now, Dorne never surrender and continue the fight. Following the death of Princess Meria Martell, her son Namor sent her daughter with a convoy of peace to King's Landing. A letter from Namor and the skull of the dragon Meraxes was sent. Namor wanted peace, but Dorne will never bend the knee. Being prompt to refuse the terms, King Aegon eventually took the letter and read the message inside. The content of the letter remained unknown, the letter being burned after by the king himself. Aegon left for Dragonstone on Balerion, and on his return the next day, he agreed to the peace terms, thus ending the 9-year war. King Aegon I Targaryen continued to rule in peace throughout his reign, and he made frequent royal progresses. The Black Dread was the key to prevent any rebellion while he was learning more about his subjects. After his death, Balerion was eventually claimed by his younger son, Prince Maegor, who never wanted other dragon, considering the rest of the lot not being worthy of him. They flew together and put an end to Jonos Arryn's rebellion, who took the Vale of Arryn and declared himself independent of the Iron Throne. On his exile on Pentos as punishment of his polygamous marriage, Maegor took Balerion with him. When King Aenys I Targaryen, his eldest brother, died, he flew back on Westeros on Balerion to claim the Iron Throne. Balerion was used in different occasions while Maegor ruled viciously over Westeros, thus the nickname Maegor the Cruel. He burned the Sept of Remembrance and caused many deaths during the savage battle at the Great Fork. He later burned the houses of Broom, Doggett, Falwell and Lorch. In the battle beneath the God's Eye, Maegor on Balerion killed his nephew, Prince Aegon, and his dragon Quicksilver in his attempt to overthrow him from the Iron Throne, declaring him as tyrant and usurper. With the completion of the Red Keep, King Maegor will begin the construction of Dragonpit, where Balerion, Vega and the other available dragons will lair. Upon the king's death, Balerion will return to Dragonstone. In the following period, the dragon will be claimed by his third known rider, Princess Arya Targaryen, from the courtyard on Dragonstone. Soon after, they both disappeared for more than a year. King Jaehaerys I Targaryen tried to locate his daughter by sending expeditions, but with no result. Rhaena Targaryen went on her dragon Dreamfire to search for the princess, but again, she found nothing, no traces of her or Balerion. A year later, Balerion returned to King's Landing with the princess attached to him. She was very ill and died soon after. The dragon had a huge fresh wound, hot and smoking on his left side with fresh blood dripping. It was speculated that the princess was not able to bend the dragon to her will, and Balerion took her to his place of birth, Old Valyria. Not long after this, Balerion was the first dragon to lair in the Dragonpit and was now guarded by dragon keepers. For the remaining of his life, Balerion was mostly riderless. The first time Prince Balon Targaryen, known as the Spring Prince, the fourth child of Jaehaerys I Targaryen, entered the Dragonpit, he smacked Balerion's snout. Later, Princess Alyssa Targaryen, the fifth child of Jaehaerys I, came to claim a dragon of her own. The dragon keepers persuaded her to elect a different younger dragon, since Balerion had become old and slow. There was a final bound to Prince Viserys Targaryen, the son of Balon and Alyssa Targaryen. He claimed Balerion, but the dragon rose hard and struggled while the prince commanded him to fly. They only flew around the city 3 times. Year later, Balerion passed away, dying of old age. Balerion's skull, along with 18 other dragon skulls, hung on a wall in the Red Keep's throne room. With his coronation, King Robert I Baratheon ordered the skulls to be removed and stored in a cellar beneath the Red Keep. As the greatest of the Targaryen dragons, Balerion's wings once shadowed empires, his roar echoing across the ages. His fire forged a new order in the world, burning castles to ash and etching his legacy into the very foundations of Westeros. But like all creatures of legend, even Balerion could not escape the passage of time. In his final days, the mighty dragon grew slow and weary, his black scales dulled by the weight of centuries. No longer did he rule the skies as he once had, and no longer did his flames strike fear into the hearts of men. Balerion lived through generations, watched kings rise and fall, but even for him, the end was inevitable. He died peacefully in the Dragonpit, far from the battlefields and conquests that defined his prime. With his death, the last link to the Age of Conquest was severed. Balerion's skull, a monument to his immense power, now rests in the Red Keep, a silent reminder of a bygone era when dragons ruled the skies, and the world trembled at their might. The Black Dread may be gone, but his shadow lingers over the histories of men, a legend of fire, fury, and the relentless passage of time. Thank you for watching. If you appreciate our work, please subscribe, give us a like and share our videos. Leave a comment if you have any suggestion or if you like to see a specific material about the Westerosi universe from our beloved George R.R. Martin. More content will follow soon.